Welcome to Mostly Mets, and just jumping right into it today, the Mets took care of business in their last homestand. Obviously taking 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers, and then taking care of business against two really bad teams, in the White Sox taking 2 out of 3, and then sweeping the worst team in baseball, the Colorado Rockies. This showed me something, this homestand, and the Mets have been really good at home this year. They're 24-7 at home, and it's obviously a great home field advantage. The ballpark's been packed, the fans are really into it, and you could tell the players are really enjoying playing in front of these fans. Even Juan Soto, who looks a little bit more comfortable lately. But the Mets in the past, and even in this season, against teams like the Nationals and the Marlins, have kind of played down to their competition. And in this series and in this homestand, they didn't. Now, there was a lot of people saying that, they shouldn't have lost a game to the White Sox, and that was an issue, and they should have swept them as well. At the end of the day, it's baseball. You're going to lose games. It's a long season. Teams lose. Taking 2 out of 3 is what basically you have to do in every series. That's your plan going into every series. You're not necessarily thinking sweep all the time. No, it's the White Sox. Should it have been a sweep if you look at the talent comparisons between the two teams? Probably. But at the end of the day, they took 2 out of 3, and they went 7-2 on this homestand, in a homestand that included playing the Dodgers. So, really happy with the way they've been playing so far. And guys, it's really not early anymore. Up until now, we've been saying, don't worry, it's early, these problems will fix themselves, or, we can't start judging, looking at the standings because it's too early in the season. But now it's June. Today is June 2nd. It's not early anymore. We've played 2 full months and a portion of another month. So we are more than a third of the way through the season, and at the end of this month, we'll be halfway through this season. So it's no longer early. And at this point in the year, the Mets are 37-22, and they have sole possession of first place in the NL East by 1 game over the Phillies. They're 8-2 in their last 10, 24-7 at home, like I said, but they are under 500 on the road. A lot of good teams struggle on the road. They play really well at home, struggle a little bit on the road, but I'd like to see that record kind of pick up. Not great to be under 500 on the road. But overall, this is a good team. And I think it's showing from the beginning of the season. Before the season started, everyone thought this was going to be a good team. And so far, they've proven that right. Now, there's been a lot of issues with runners in scoring position. They're batting .212 with runners in scoring position this year. They leave an average of about 4 runners in scoring position every game, and that can't continue, and I don't think that will. I think that will all even itself out over the long term, and they'll start doing better in those situations. They're batting .246 or .248 as a team, and so to be batting .212 with runners in scoring position, I just expect that number to come up. Maybe it won't be .250 or .260, but can it be .230 or .240? That can make a huge difference in winning games. An extra run here, a run there can win you games, and I expect them to get better. So the Mets so far at 37-22 have underperformed offensively, and they've still managed to win a lot of games and have the second best record in baseball. So I'm really not worried about this team, and more than a third of the way through the season, 2 months in, I'm happy with where they are right now. Now, if we look at the offensive side of this team, it's been underwhelming this year. Soto has struggled, and Pete, after a great hot start, has really started to cool off. Lindor started to cool off after a good start. But overall, if you look at their numbers, they're right in the middle or top of the pack in most categories. If you look at batting average, they struggle there. They're at .246. They're 16th. They're still right in the middle of the league in terms of batting average. Base percentage, they're at .329. That's 6th in the league. Slugging, they're at .414. That's 6th. OPS, .743. That's 6th. Home runs, they have the 10th most at 67. So overall, they're at least middle of the pack in all the major categories. So this team, its ceiling is much higher offensively than they've shown, but they have an opportunity now because they've won games with their offense struggling, and probably not even struggling as much as we've all seen. I think we look at the Mets as struggling offensively because we thought they were going to be so good. There was talk, Alvarez before the season started, Nimmo before the season started, saying the Mets have the best, offense in baseball, or possibly could have the best offense in baseball. And right now, they're not really close to that. The Dodgers are much better. The Yankees are much better. There's teams that are way ahead of them in terms of offense. but their ceiling is high. And I think going into the last 2/3 of the season, into the last half of the season, they're going to really start to show that. Right now, their pitching has done more to win games for this team than their offense has, and we thought that was the weak point. So the pitching, hopefully it holds up going forward. That's I think the concern now. If the offense starts to pick up, as it looks like maybe it has the last few games, maybe the pitching starts to die down. But it hasn't looked like that yet. So I'm really happy with the offensive numbers overall. I mean, if you watch every day, you see little issues here and there, runners in scoring position, we all know. But overall, if you look at the numbers, they're right middle to top of the pack in most categories. Now, if you look at their top performers, there's not a ton, right? If you look up and down their stats, Nimmo, low batting average, he does have 9 home runs. Alvarez has struggled. Vientos has struggled. Beatty, if you look at him, he's struggled early on and he's really come into form lately. But their real 2 best performers all year are Lindor and Alonso. Lindor, 282 on the season, 354 on base percentage, 845 OPS. He's got 13 home runs and 34 RBI. So at a leadoff spot, 13 home runs and 34 RBIs, very good. His batting average is higher than it usually would be at this time of the year. 845 OPS, still very good. His defense has struggled a little bit this year. He hasn't been the Lindor that we all know at shortstop, but his offense has been better at this point in the season than it usually is. And I expect him to get even better as it gets warmer, as he gets more into the season. That's just the way he performs. So I'm expecting a much bigger year this year than we've even seen in the past, and that's saying a lot considering he was second in MVP voting last year. Pete Alonso, obviously he carried the team for the first month of the season, and then he had a big cooling off. He went from batting 360 or 370 down to now where he is at 288 in the course of a month, but he's still batting 288, way above his career average. He's got a 384 on base percentage, a 927 OPS, and he's got 12 home runs and 46 RBIs. He's been one of the only guys in the lineup that has performed well with runners in scoring position. You could see that with his 46 RBIs. He's just, without Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor, this team would be probably under 500, just not looking very good at this point of the year. So those guys are definitely their top performers. Now, if you go to the disappointments of the year, Mark Vientos has been a huge disappointment, and he gets his hits here and there. He hits the ball hard sometimes, but this is a guy that we relied on to be a middle-of-the-order power bat for us this year. He was we thought maybe he would have the second most home runs behind Alonso, or maybe up there with Soto or Lindor in terms of home runs, and he just hasn't done that. He's batting 232. He's only got a 300 on base percentage, a 685 OPS, 6 home runs, 21 RBIs. At this point in the season, he's on pace to hit less than 20 home runs this year. We expected him to be a 30-plus, 35-plus home run guy, and he's just not proving to be that right now. Now, will he get better in the future? Yeah, I'm not giving up on him. I think, his future's at DH. I don't think he should be playing third base anymore. Beatty should be getting the bulk of the playing time at third base as long as he's performing at the level that he is. But Vientos right now is just a huge hole in the middle of that lineup. Now, you've seen him move down in the lineup. I think he was sitting 7th or 8th yesterday. He's definitely been moved down in the lineup, and that's smart to do. Maybe take some pressure off him. I think last year he didn't really have much pressure. He was a guy who wasn't part of the team, obviously, when they broke camp, was in the minor leagues. Then when he came up, he had something to prove, and he became kind of what he was with no pressure. Maybe batting 4th or 5th or 6th in the order really put a lot of pressure on him, and it's making him struggle. I don't know. I have no idea what's going on, but he just doesn't look like the same guy. The same guy that hit 27 home runs last year in less than a full season doesn't look like he exists right now. Hopefully that turns around. To be honest, I wasn't that sold on Vientos coming into the season. I thought people were overrating him a little bit, but I still expected, even if he has a low batting average, low on base, to hit some home runs and to show some power, and he hasn't even done that this year. So I'm down on Vientos right now, not giving up on him, but I think that he doesn't have much longer left, much longer of a leash left to get real significant playing time if he continues to play at the level that he has. Another guy that I think has been a real disappointment this year is Francisco Alvarez. Now, we know he started off the season on the injured list. He came up in that Washington series, hit a home run right away. We thought maybe he figured something out, was going to turn into maybe what we thought he was, But he's been a huge disappointment. He's hitting 235. He has a 326 on base, a 622 OPS, 1 home run, and 7 RBIs. Where'd his power go? I don't understand how he just has all of a sudden no power. He doesn't hit the ball hard. I guess he does hit the ball hard, but he's hitting it on the ground. He's not lifting the ball. And it goes back to maybe the way that they're teaching him how to hit. They thought he was a home run or nothing and tried to change him more into an average hitter. But it's clearly not working because his average is still 235. He's not. If he was hitting 285 with 1 home run and 7 RBIs, I'd say that's fine. He's throwing runners out. He's performing defensively. But at the end of the day, he's there to hit home runs. He's in the lineup because he hits home runs, and he has 1 home run and 7 RBIs this year. It's not good enough. Another guy that I'm not giving up on, he's only 23 years old. I think he'll be fine. I think he might be in his own head. I'm not sure what's going on with him, but it's disappointing. It's disappointing when you'd rather see Luis Torrens in the lineup every day than your 23-year-old former number 1 prospect. It's not a great sign. Torrens at this point should be getting more playing time. He has a good level swing, base hit swing. He doesn't have the power that Alvarez is supposed to have, but Alvarez doesn't really have that power either. So at the end of the day, I think Torrens should get most of the playing time. Maybe Alvarez needs a trip to the minors to clear his head and get his swing right. I'm not sure. Those aren't my decisions, but to me, I think he should be in the minor leagues right now, working things out, trying to figure it out. Whether the Mets will do that, I don't know, but that would make the most sense to me. But those are really the two biggest, disappointments this year. You can say Nimmo's been a disappointment, but he still has 9 home runs. He's contributing. Yes, his batting average is 224, but that's just kind of the way he's been. But since moving to the 2-hole, he's looked a lot better. So I think maybe they figured out that he should be the 2-hitter most days. That makes the most sense to me. There's a lot of disappointments offensively on this team. Juan Soto, big disappointment, although he's hit 2 home runs in his last 2 games. In his last 9 at-bats, he has 2 home runs and a double, 4 hits overall in his last 9 at-bats. So I think maybe he's starting to come out of it. He looks more comfortable. We saw a couple of shuffles. We saw him kind of stare down the pitcher a little bit, which is what he's known for, and he just hasn't really done that with the Mets. But he did in this last series. Now, could that be because it's the Rockies and he feels like they're a lower level team? Maybe, but maybe that gets him going. I don't care who he does it against. He just needs to get some of that swagger back, some of that aura back, as people say. But yeah, there's just a lot of disappointment on the offense this year, other than really a couple of guys at the top. Now, the biggest surprise for the Mets this year has obviously been the pitching. The Mets still have the best team ERA in the major leagues at 2.85. That's, the closest team to them, I believe, is the Tigers, and they're at 3.08. So it's just, they're far and away have been the best pitching staff in the majors this year, and they're getting it from contributions from guys like, Clay Holmes and Griffin Canning and Tylor McGill. Those guys have all been good. Senga has been great this year. But we kind of expected him to be a top-level pitcher as long as he's healthy, and he's been healthy and productive and really good for the Mets this year. You look at their ERA, like I said, 2.85. Their batting average against is 2.23, which is 4th in the majors. Their strikeouts, they have 526, which is good for 6th. But they've walked a lot of batters, and I think that's one of those things that could come back to bite them. It hasn't so far, but guys like Canning and Holmes and even Senga have been giving up a lot of walks, and they're a bullpen that gives up some walks too. So eventually, I think those kind of even out and could really start to hurt your pitching staff if some of those walks come in to score. But they're 7th worst in the league in walks. They've 213 walks is just too many out of a pitching staff that, let's face it, they don't necessarily have the most talent in the world. They're getting by on their ability to pitch, and maybe, the pitching lab fixing a couple guys and tweaking their, repertoire here and there. But at the end of the day, those walks are going to end up coming back to bite you. And that's what I worry about going forward. When I talk about the pitching staff possibly regressing, now we haven't seen it so far. Clay Holmes has been great. Kodai Senga has been great. Peterson's been great. But I just don't, I think those walks at the end of the day will come back to hurt you. When you play a great team, or you go later in the season where you're in a pennant race and all the games matter so much more, or the playoffs, if you're facing the Dodgers and you're walking them, giving up a walk or two an inning, like eventually those are going to come back to score, and that's a problem. So right now it's fine. I'm not trying to throw cold water on this pitching staff. They've been great so far, and they're getting healthier with Montas in. He's doing rehab games. Manaya is getting close to rehab games. He's throwing off a mound, throwing batting practice. So I'm really excited for this pitching staff, especially now that they're getting a little bit more healthy. And the bullpen has been absolutely unbelievable so far. But eventually that could come back to haunt you. I'm just bringing it up as an issue going forward that we have to keep an eye on. They walked a lot of batters last year too. It's just an issue for the Mets the last couple of years. They're kind of, I think it's more of they're not really power arms. They don't have power arms in their rotation, so they kind of have to nibble and pitch and hit the outside corners, and you're going to miss and give up some walks there. They also have some ground ball pitchers, in their rotation, so I get it. I get, nibbling and trying to paint the corners, but there hasn't been a lot of attacking hitters, and I think eventually the league might catch up with that and kind of wait the Mets pitchers out and let them. It happened in the playoffs last year with a guy like Quintana. He just nibbled a little bit too much, couldn't throw a ball for a strike that wasn't going to be hit, and I think that's what the Mets might get into. I'm not trying to be negative. I hope that I'm wrong, but it does seem like an issue to me going forward. Now, if you want to talk about top performers in the Mets pitching staff right now, the list is, everyone basically. There hasn't been very many guys who are disappointments, but the real top guys, obviously Senga so far this year. He's 6-3 with a 1.6 ERA in 62 innings pitched. He's got 59 strikeouts, 28 walks. His walks are too high, but he's been very good at limiting damage. I don't think he's given up more than 3 runs in an outing in the last year, basically, that he's pitched. Like, he does not give up more than 3 runs. He struggles early in the game. He gives up some home runs early, but he always kind of settles down and does really well, and he's been going longer into games. I know the last start, I don't think he pitched 6. I think he pitched 5 2/3 last start, or 5 1/3. But overall, he's been going deep into games. He's been getting over 100 pitches. He's really looked like an ace so far. And I'm really happy with the way Senga's pitching now that he's healthy. And really, we're seeing what Senga could be. Peterson, also, a guy that early in the season was one of the guys who wasn't performing that well to me out of the starting rotation. But he's really taken that number 2 starter position. He's 4-2 with a 2.69 ERA, 59 strikeouts, 23 walks, and 63 innings. Peterson's been really good. He has had guys on base. He's had a lot of walks, but he's able to limit the damage when he needs to. And we all looked at Peterson's advanced metrics last year and thought maybe he was getting a little bit lucky. And there's a lot of that this year as well. But maybe that's just what he is. If you do it for one season, yeah, maybe you got lucky. If you're doing it for a season and a third and really performing well, maybe that's just how you are. That some pitchers just do better when there's guys on base and when they have a little bit more pressure. Maybe that's what Peterson is. I don't know, but at the end of the day, I'm liking what I'm seeing so far from Peterson, and he's definitely been a top performer. Now, if you go to the bullpen, it starts and ends with Reed Garrett. Reed Garrett has been unbelievable for the Mets this year. He's got a .7 ERA in 25 2/3 innings. He's got 30 strikeouts, 13 walks. Still a lot of walks there. You like to get those down a little bit, but he's done what he's been asked to do all season long. Earlier in the season, he was the first guy out of the bullpen trying to strand runners on, coming in the 6th inning with 2 men on and stranding them. Now he's become really their primary setup man, and he's pitching late in games, and he's performing extremely well. A .70 ERA at this point in the season is fantastic. I don't think there's a reliever in baseball that has a better ERA than that. I'm actually 100% sure on that. But yeah, Garrett's been unbelievable. Brazoban has been another guy. Listen, who would have thought that Brazoban would have had this kind of season? He struggled a little bit lately, giving up a couple runs. I think he's probably a little bit overworked. He's a guy who goes multiple innings pretty much every time he pitches. And I think he's just a little overworked right now. Maybe get him a little bit of rest and he'll be fine. But I've loved what I've seen from Brazoban this year. He's attacking hitters. He's going after guys. He sees that he has the stuff. He's got a good fastball. He's got that good changeup. He's just trying to get guys out. And I think last year maybe he was nibbling too much, giving up walks, giving up home runs, and he lost confidence. And Now he's got that confidence back, and you can see even after he gives up a run now or a home run, he comes right back. And that's not what we saw last year. And Mendoza's talked about that a few times, that he just feels now like he has this, they've convinced him finally that he has the stuff to perform at the major league level, and that's what he's doing. So Brazoban, 1.34 ERA, 32 strikeouts, 9 walks in 33 innings. He's been unbelievable, gives them multiple innings, saves the rest of the bullpen a lot of days. I don't know where we'd be without Brazoban and Garrett at this point. And you look at Edwin Diaz. I made a video a couple weeks ago where I basically said I don't think Edwin Diaz is ever going to be what he once was. But over the last couple of weeks, we've seen the old Edwin Diaz. We've seen him just be a lockdown guy in the ninth inning. His fastball looks good. His slider looks good. His control looks good. That's the most important part. He's not the heart attack Diaz. He's been the 2022 version, and that's what we needed to see. The Mets needed that at the back end of their bullpen. He's got a 2.22 ERA, and he's got 37 strikeouts and 11 walks in 24 innings pitched, and he's 13 for 13 in save opportunities. So he hasn't blown a save. All the runs he basically gives up are in games that he comes into just to get some work. Maybe they're up by 5 or 6 or down by 5 or 6. Those are the runs that he always gives up. So Diaz has been Diaz. He's been the dominant guy, and that's really important for the Mets. Brazoban, Garrett, and Edwin Diaz at the back end of that bullpen has just been lights out. And that's the recipe going forward. If they can get their starting pitchers to go 6 innings and then 7th inning Brazoban, 8th inning Garrett, 9th inning Diaz, you're going to win most games. So really happy with those guys. But in the bullpen, there is a couple of disappointments. And it's kind of hard to say anyone's been a disappointment in that bullpen. I don't think there's anyone with lower than like a 3.5 ERA. But if you really break it down, Jose Butto has not been good. I have no confidence when he comes into a game, and Mendoza continues to use him in kind of high leverage situations. Now that hasn't happened in the last few games. In the last week or so, he's kind of brought him in less tense situations, but he stuck with him way too long, and Butto has just not been the same guy since kind of midway last year. He just hasn't. He was not good in the second half last year. He was not good in the playoffs, and he's not been good this year. I don't know what it is with him, whether it's stuff or confidence or what, but he just hasn't been the same guy, especially after those 2 home runs in Milwaukee. He clearly hasn't been the same. I'm just not loving Butto. So far this year, he's got a 3.6 ERA. In 30 innings pitched, he's given up 29 hits and 16 walks. That's 1.5 base runners an inning. So not great there. And he's given up a 261 batting average. So yeah, Butto, he's got a 3.60 ERA, but I just don't trust when he comes in the game. I really don't. And I'm just not a Butto fan right now. He needs to just be a mop-up type of guy. And that's what he is at this point. Whether he can gain some confidence and gain trust back in his manager, maybe. But as of right now, I have no trust. Ryan Stanek also has been a disappointment to me. He pitches well against the bad teams and in low leverage situations, but he was kind of brought in to be a late inning reliever. He's their hardest thrower, and he just has not performed well in big situations. He's got a 3.26 ERA, but he doesn't have an out pitch against good teams and good hitters. And that's the problem. You can throw 100 miles an hour all you want, but if you're throwing it straight, guys are going to hit it, or they're going to at least foul it off and live to see another pitch. He just has not been good against the better teams, and that's why he's been a disappointment. Like I said, there's not a lot of guys who I can, sit here and say are a disappointment this year, because there's just really not a lot of guys in the pitching staff that are. The Mets pitching staff has really been that good. All right, now I'm going to get into probably the biggest story right now going on with the Mets, and that's the emergence or the re-emergence of Ronny Mauricio. We all know Ronny Mauricio. He was with the team in 2023, where in 26 games he had 100 at-bats. He hit around 250 with a 643 OPS, 2 home runs, 9 RBIs, and 7 stolen bases. Now, those numbers don't sound that fantastic, but what you saw from Mauricio was a lot of ability and potential. He's got a lot of speed, a lot of power. He hits the ball really hard. And overall, he just looked like a guy who could become a star. Now, we don't know that's what he's going to be, but he's had a really good minor league career. If you look at his minors, he's got over 2,100 at-bats in the minor leagues with a 270 batting average, a 758 OPS, 79 home runs, 300 RBIs, 69 stolen bases. He just shows a lot of potential, and he was really heading towards a really good trajectory. In 2023, he had a huge season in the minors where he hit 292 with an 852 OPS, 23 home runs, 71 RBIs, 24 stolen bases before being called up to the Mets. He looked like he was becoming a really good prospect and a big star. And then he had the bad injury, and he missed all of the 2024 season, and obviously he missed a lot of time to start this season. But so far in the minors this year, in 65 at-bats, he's batting .323, 3 home runs, 11 RBIs, and an .892 OPS. And 6 stolen bases as well. And since he's moved to AAA, it's only been 9 games, but he has 3 home runs, 8 RBIs. He's hitting .515 with over a 1,300 OPS. So he has performed extremely well in the minors this year. And now you have all the Met fans clamoring for him to come up. And they want to send down Acuna or send down Beatty or get rid of Vientos, And I think it's going to be a problem that persists because, as we've already seen, Mendoza and Stearns have already said, we need to see him do this at the minor leagues. He has to get back into baseball shape. He's not even playing 2 days in a row right now. He's not in great shape because of the long rehab from his injury. He had, I believe he tore his ACL. I'm not exactly sure, but he had he had setbacks in his injury. He re-injured. I think he had multiple surgeries to fix it. So it was not a good recovery. And he's going to need more time just to get into baseball shape. Remember, if you call up Mauricio now, say you send down Acuna, he's not going to be getting at-bats. He's not going to be getting, consistent at-bats. And in the minor leagues, they can say he's playing every other day until he's ready to play every day, and he's going to be hitting every day or every other day. Where in the majors, you have to go based off the matchups, and you have to go based off how you're going to win a game. So they need to control his rehab, control him getting into shape, which is why I just don't expect him to be up. And that's what Mendoza said, that's what Stearns has said, that's what every Mets beat reporter has said. Don't expect Ronny Mauricio anytime soon. But in a month, he'll probably be here, right? In 2 months, he'll probably be here. He'll be here at some point this season as long as he continues in his progression and continues to perform well in AAA. But yeah, this is going to be a talking point for a while now, especially if the Mets offense struggles a little bit. If Vientos continues to struggle, they're going to say, bring up Mauricio. I just don't see it as a possibility right now, but we'll see what happens. He will be part of this team at some point, this season. Now, if you're talking about Mauricio coming up, I know it's not happening today or tomorrow or even in a week. It's probably a month or 2 down the road. But you have to start thinking about who gets sent down when Mauricio is ready. Now, we don't know what's going to be happening in a month. Is Acuna going to be tearing the cover off the ball? Is Beatty going to continue his hot streak? Is Vientos going to figure it out? We don't know any of those answers. But right now, what the Mets have in the major leagues is Vientos, Beatty, Acuna, and McNeil, who are basically fighting for 3 spots in the lineup every day, whether it's DH, third base, second base. It's those 4 guys that are, fighting it out for those spots. Now, McNeil is more of a utility guy. He could play the outfield. He could play left field, give Nimmo a day off. He could play right field if you want to maybe DH Soto a day or give him a day off. And he plays second base. I'm sure he could also play third base. I think he's also their emergency shortstop. McNeil's just a baseball player. You can kind of stick him anywhere. He'll be fine. He's also played some center field, obviously, and he's done okay out there. Don't love him in center field, but he gets the job done. So McNeil, I think I'm almost keeping off of this at this point. So you have those 3 guys fighting for 2 spots, basically. And yes, Vientos should DH most of the time, and to me, Beatty should be playing every day at third, and then it really just comes down to the matchups, whether you're going to have Acuna or McNeil at second, and who's going to play center. It's a good problem to have. You have an extra guy, basically, every day that could start for you. So it's a great thing to have happen. But now you also have Ronny Mauricio, who's probably going to be ready to come up soon, within the next month or 2. And you also have Jet Williams, who is their number 1 prospect by ranking by a lot of people. And he's getting ready. He's in AA now. He's expected to come up at some point this year. He's batting .270 with an .821 OPS. He's got 4 home runs, 17 RBIs, and 16 stolen bases. And he's a middle infielder. He's played a lot of shortstop in the minors, and he's played some center field. He's also played some second base. He's kind of a guy who can play multiple positions, but he's another middle infield option, another utility kind of option, and eventually he's going to be ready. Now, he's only 21. I think he's behind Mauricio at this point, but eventually he's going to force his way up there. If he starts hitting well, or starts hitting better than he is, or even at the same level as he is, I think he could come up and be kind of a center field option. The Mets right now are loaded with middle infielders, and they're all kind of major league ready middle infielders, and there's only a couple of spots for those guys to play. So I think at some point you have to start thinking about if these guys are going to be trade pieces. Maybe Mauricio continues to tear it up for the next month down in AAA, and instead of calling him up, maybe use him as a trade piece to go out and get someone. Maybe Beatty keeps tearing it up in the major leagues, and then you can use him and package him on a deal to go out and get a really good reliever, a solid back end of the bullpen kind of pitcher. I don't know. It's a good problem to have, but these are going to be the questions that we have moving forward. Who's trade bait? Who do they see as a future starter on this team? I think it's, like I said, a great problem to have, but it is a problem because now you're going based off matchups. There's going to be guys in the minor leagues who deserve a call-up, and there's going to be guys who fans start clamoring for, and it puts a lot more pressure on those guys in the major leagues. So, like I said, great problem to have, but I do see this as something that's going to have to be resolved at some point. Now, starting tonight, the Mets go on a road trip. They will be going to the AAA to play the Dodgers. Big series there. We have Paul Blackburn on the mound, making his first start of the year. Don't know how many innings they're expecting out of him. He's the sixth starter this time through the rotation. He's basically, the Herget or those kind of guys that have gotten that sixth-man starter start throughout the season. So I don't expect him to necessarily be fully stretched out. Maybe he gives you 4 innings. It might be a bullpen day, but the bullpen should be pretty rested. They've gotten some good length out of their starting pitchers lately. So this is a really important series. You took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers just last week, but it was in your own building where the Mets perform very well in their own building. They have not performed as well on the road. The Dodgers are kind of hot right now. They just beat the Yankees 2 out of 3. They put up a lot of runs in that series. So we might have caught the Dodgers at the right time when they came to Citi Field, and now we're going into LA, and I think that you're going to have to be at your best because they seem to be performing really well right now. I'm happy to, see how they stack up against the better teams. The Mets do have, I think it's the best record in baseball against teams with records above 500, so I'm not necessarily worried about how they're going to perform, but the Dodgers look scary right now. They put up 18 runs in one of those games against the Yankees. It's going to be a good series. It's going to be a late night series. I'm probably going to go live for at least one of them. I'm not sure which game yet. I guess when I'm feeling the least tired, I'll go into one of those games because it will be probably a 10 to 1 a.m. stream. Hopefully you guys tune into that. If you're new here and you like this kind of content, please subscribe, give me a like, comment whatever you'd like. If you're returning, thank you for coming back. Also like, comment, do all that kind of stuff. And that's really all I got. And until next time, let's go Mets.